completely blind and to run 12.5 laps of a track.
It is. It is.
And overtaking manoeuvres, I would imagine, are very different, very difficult.
The biggest problem is going to be at the start, because that's when everybody's packed in there. And I would imagine things are going to get strung out pretty quickly as we move along within the first lap.
So let's just have a look at some of the times here. First of all, I have to tell you that Odair Santos of Brazil, who should be in lane 1, is not starting. He hasn't showed. So Jason Joseph DUNKERLEY of Canada, 35 years of age, has the next best season's best time, 15:37.76. It's a shame for Odair Santos because he was 20 seconds inside that. Yeah. Wilson Beale of Kenya. Yebo, South Africa, that's the cry from Janero, 39 years of age. Danish competitor Mikael Andersen with the natty flags on his glasses. And Nuno Alves of Portugal. And the Kenyan in the outside lane, Francis Thuo KARANJA. So I guess it's DUNKERLEY that we're looking for here from Canada to win this one. Maybe Wilson Beale of Kenya or Shinya WADA of Japan.
So you can see a bit of a staggered start here where the starters on the outside are required to go around that first lane outside of those cones. Around the first turn, sorry. And then everybody will settle in once they get on the far side of the track.
So it's the Kenyan who is going into the lead.
And as you predicted, there's a little bumping going on, and some of it right now is just between guides and runners as everybody's trying to find their place.
Reminds me a bit of a three-legged race that we used to have at school, where you tie the middle leg together, in that you have to be in sync with the guide, and you can see they're almost running in time with each other.
Definitely. That's exactly what they're doing. And see a couple of Kenyans going to the front at this point. So you were talking about the Canadian as the guy to watch, and we've got a couple of Canadians here.
So in the lead at the moment we've got Wilson Beale of Kenya, and alongside him Francis KARANJA.
Pack is sticking together. We've seen some other races, some other longer running races where, and now actually, just as you say that, DUNKERLEY from Canada is going to the front.
And Cheruiyot of Kenya is up there as well now.
But nobody's quite strung this pack out. When you see runners running side by side, that means that the pace isn't all that punishing.
So DUNKERLEY of Canada from Cheruiyot of Kenya. And then we've also got Wilson Beale of Kenya. So what sort of tactics would we see in a race like this?
Well, one of the things is always a question of who wants to go to the front. Do you want to go to the front? And if you go to the front, are you going to make a statement at the front? Are you going to start stringing this pack out? And you start to see how DUNKERLEY is stringing the pack out, where it's still bunched back in the back, but it gets to be more of like an arrow kind of shape, where it's one person all the way along. And that's the biggest question here. And the thing is, if somebody's going to go out, how quickly are they going to go out? Do you want to stay with them? Because you want to stay within your pace as much as you possibly can. And if somebody creates a bit of a gap, can you close that gap slowly, or do you try to close that gap quickly? And if you try to close that gap quickly, you often run the risk of spending your energy before you get to the finish line.
So it's DUNKERLEY of Canada who is leading them out at the moment. And it's the Chilean competitor, Valenzuela.
You can see how DUNKERLEY has that leash where they're connected to each other. Guide and runner. Does a 74-second lap.
So Canada in the lead through DUNKERLEY, Valenzuela of Chile in second place. And they're getting away from the pack. The Kenyans can't keep up with them at the moment.
And a 74-second lap is a fast lap. that means that they're essentially running just about 5-minute miles, which for most people out there, a 5-minute mile sounds like a really, really fast time. You can see these athletes don't look like they're hurting all that much, but they're still running a 5-minute mile.
Jason Joseph DUNKERLEY, 35 years of age, from Canada, in the lead. So that's 12.5 laps of the track. We'll let that carry on while we have a look at the leader in the shot put. He's already in the lead, and that is again over 16 meters, 16.24. He's already thrown tonight. As the muscle man stance to the crowd. And what's the big Aussie thrown this time?
You can see him struggling to stay in that ring too as he lets that shot go.
9 laps to go in the 5,000 meters.
It looks like they went with another sub 75, but you can see how things are strung out there, especially with the first 2 athletes out in front. It's developing a gap.
Yeah, DUNKERLEY of Canada still in the lead, and it's the Chilean competitor, VALENZUELA, who is tracking him. DUNKERLEY is 35 years of age. There's quite a lot of people in their 30s in the race, but there's some 42-year-olds as well. VALENZUELA of Chile is just 29. And it looks like they're away. I can't see the pack finding any way back.
They're developing about a 20 to 30 meter lead on the rest of the pack.
And obviously this is why the guide is so crucial in a race like this, because the guide is the only one that can tell the distance.
Exactly. Tell them where. Though it is hard for anybody when you're on the track. You'll see some of the athletes who are looking at the big screen now. You don't get this at most of your events, but here at the Paralympics you get the big screen, and you'll see the athletes coming down and looking at the big screen to see just where everybody is. You see DUNKERLEY's guide looking at his watch as he's going through there again.
Funny that he has to look at his watch. You'd think that there'd be a big screen he could look at.
Well, there's a gigantic clock right there, and that he looked at his watch as he was passing that gigantic clock. But he's used to looking at his watch. He's been doing this all the time. He's been doing it in training, in all the races, and so that's his habit, is to look at his watch as he goes along, and he looked at his watch. So you want to stick with the comfort of what you've always done.
So let's go back to the discus. GUAJARDO of China. Ooh, that's massive. Wow. You can tell it's massive because the judges were standing further in, not expecting it to be that far. Not often you see a judge running with his jacket flapping.
This is where they wish that they had that digital map of the field so that it would land and that they'd know and they didn't have to run all the way out there.
So the women's long jump also underway. We'll bring you some pictures of that when we get them. We're not showing us any at the moment. I apologise for that. But we've got these 2 throwing events they seem to be concentrating on. This is GUAJARDO, 55.81, and that equates to 1,017 points. So it's Canada and Chile dominating the 5,000 metres. Jason Joseph DUNKERLEY, 35 years of age, ahead of VALENZUELA, the 29-year-old from Chile.
And you can see that DUNKERLEY's setting the pace, but VALENZUELA is sitting pretty comfortably just behind him. There was a bit of a gap before. And you can see how what DUNKERLEY's guide is actually doing, Jeremy, is he's taking splits. So he's not just looking at his watch, he's taking splits as they're going along. So
just explain what that means, taking splits?
Yes, exactly. So what he's doing is he's hitting his watch, and that will tell him what their lap time was.
Yeah.
And their lap time is going to tell him, so what they did in the last 400 meters, that's going to tell him how fast they're going, whether they're picking up the pace, which is kind of interesting. Just took a lap right there, and then now they picked up a little bit of a gap on VALENZUELA, so that might have been something that gave him a little impetus to pick up the pace.
My watch has a lap time function on it, but I've never quite got to grips with it. I'm wearing my cheap watch today because my other watch keeps setting off the alarm when you come into the stadium, you know, the metal detector. So I put this one on thinking it was probably plastic, but that set the alarm off as well. But then I think it might be the buckle on my belt. You can never tell.
There is a fair amount of security, isn't there?
How
Everywhere you go.
How do you go on then, being in a wheelchair, when you come through the security? Because obviously there's a lot of metal in your chair.
There's a lot of metal in my chair. I usually come through in the car in the T3, and so they check the car, they check me, they check my chair. When I go through the individual security points, I get patted down everywhere I go.
Do you?
Oh yes.
We're very friendly in this country.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's good. And they're generally pretty quick, which is not always the case with the airports.
No.
Not saying it about here, but anywhere.
Do you enjoy the pat downs?
You know, I mean, I enjoy that we're going to be safe and secure, and I know that I'm not bringing anything in, but I don't know about anybody else. So this looks like a big throw too.
You're such a diplomat, Chris. Good answer. That was a big throw. So this is the Iranian, currently in second place.
One of these things you see with these field athletes is that they're so explosive.
Oh, he's gone into first place.
He has.
With that one, 52.46. He set a new world record.
And you can see that he's a little bit more slight than some of the other athletes, and you think that these big guys, but it's so much of how they can get that strength and that quickness to meet in the middle and get that discus flying as far as they can.
Wilson Beale of Kenya, 26-year-old, has pulled out of this race now. Just come up as a DNF. And Odair Santos of Brazil is a DNS, which did not start. One's did not start, one's did not finish.
About 2/3 of the way through this race.
So it's going to be between these two. And we say between these two, even though there's four of them, because it's the athlete who is the person who will get the medal, or the guide gets a medal as well, which is good to see. So it's Jason Joseph DUNKERLEY running with his guide, Josh KARANJA, and Christian VALENZUELA from Chile with his guide, Christopher GUAJARDO.
So a mile left to go. They're still running about the same time, though they're about 2 seconds slower than they were earlier on. They were running pretty consistently in the 74 seconds. It looks like DUNKERLEY is making a bit of a move. You see his guide looking back there a few meters back, just to see. Try to get an impression of how Valenzuela looks, whether it looks like he's hurting or not. As we said earlier, you have to pick your guide well, because this guide has to not only be your eyes, but at the same time, this guide has to be able to run the same pace. And this is kind of interesting now. We're seeing a bit of a move.
So on form, in terms of personal bests, DUNKERLEY's personal best is 15:37 and Valenzuela's is 16:01. So DUNKERLEY is nearly half a minute faster on paper, but of course this is run on the track.
It most definitely is run on the track, and that's not a huge difference, but it's a pretty considerable difference, and sometimes it's representative of, and you can see that lap was just a little bit faster. It went down from 76 down to 75. But part of it is it's representative of the field in the race that you're running, or the kind of race that you're running. Sometimes that's how you can get a fast lap, and you get a little bit of a yo-yo going on here. Got that rubber band in between DUNKERLEY and Valenzuela, and it stretches a little, and then Valenzuela closes it up, and then it stretches a little bit, and now he looks like he's pulling out into lane 2.
So this is a fascinating battle. The Chilean runner is running way ahead of what he should be doing. I wonder though, is he not using up a lot more energy by having to go past in the outside lane?
You go a lot further. I've heard 7 more meters going out in lane 2 or something like that for each lap. So, but he's closed that gap. It's often hard to pass on the turn. You usually want to pass on the straightaway. So
he's done it. He's passed. Valenzuela of Chile is passed. And now it's DUNKERLEY who's playing catch-up. So this will be a real turn-up for the books.
Be interesting to see if DUNKERLEY can come back on this. He's been leading the whole time. Valenzuela picked it up about a second that lap. So it's not a considerable amount, but a second's enough to make a difference. So we'll see what happens if DUNKERLEY is going to come back. Might be that DUNKERLEY just wanted Valenzuela to lead a little bit get a chance to see just how strong he is, or feel just how strong he is. Have his guide have a good look at him, and make his move. Figure out where he's going to make his move. It's usually easier to attack from the back, but it looks like Valenzuela is picking up, opening a bit more of a gap. Looks like he might get away and just stay away.
So Dunkerley of Canada, who's the second fastest in the race, must have thought that he was in with a great shout when the fastest runner didn't start and the third fastest pulled out during the race. But it's Valenzuela, who's nearly half a minute slower in terms of personal bests, who's now beginning to stretch the lead away. It's looking good for the Chilean runner.
That rubber band that we saw attached to Valenzuela when Dunkerley was in front kept stretching and then coming back and stretching and coming back. Valenzuela looks like he's stretching into the breaking point right here.
So coming up to the bell, the signal that tells us they're on the last lap, and it's Valenzuela, Christian Valenzuela of Chile, stretching out now.
You can see his guide waving to the crowd, trying to get the noise going. Valenzuela ran a 72-second previous lap. That's how he developed that gap. And it looks like Dunkerley does not have the ability to recover or to respond to that move from Valenzuela.
And usually with the events for blind runners, they don't like the crowd noise, but actively the Chilean guide was trying to get the crowd going.
He was trying to get him going. At this point, there's nothing that can happen other than just running fast. So I don't think that the noise is going to disturb them at all. Coming up in the Spanish lap traffic here.
So it's Chile who are going to get a gold here through Christian Valenzuela. I can't tell you who's in bronze medal position because it's so far back we can't see. But Valenzuela of Chile, the Spaniards rightfully stepping out of the way and shouting to them as they go past. It's going to be a gold medal for Chile and Christian Valenzuela. And the silver medal will go to Jason Dunkerley of Canada. And the Chilean athlete is absolutely shattered. And it's...
he put everything he had into it.
It's Japan from Kenya. This will be Shinya WADA of Japan who's going to come in and get the bronze medal. Shinya WADA ahead of the Kenyan. So it's gold for Chile, silver for Canada, bronze for Japan.
Great race. And you can see that Valenzuela put absolutely everything he had into that race. He's celebrating, but I think he's also trying to compose himself.
Now usually with middle distance races like this, they don't look quite as tired as that. It's usually the sprinters that are gasping for air. The middle distance runners are usually okay, but these look absolutely shattered.
Well, as you mentioned, he ran considerably faster than he has run ever before.
They always say the 400 meters is the one that really takes a long time to recover from, because that's just out and out sprinting for a long time. But 5,000 meters is often a bit of a jog, but I think that guy has just run way above his personal best.
And sometimes you do get those kinds of performances where people perform completely out of their head.
Well,
so 15:26, and his qualifying personal best was 16:01, so over half a minute faster.
35 seconds. That's an incredible amount. I don't know what he's saying, but he's happy. Right, the controversy's been cleared up about Australia and South Africa colours. Neil Stridham says, Australia, aren't they supposed to be gold and green, and South Africa green and gold?
Oh, well, there you go.
That's cleared that up then.
I feel much better about that now.
So a real surprise in that race, especially as the fastest runner didn't start. The third fastest pulled out during the race, and the second fastest got beaten by a Chilean runner who took 35 seconds off his personal best.